We're talking Colorado State Rams today on Sharp and the Point. 2024, they were 8-5. It was a decent year. I think there was a lot more expectation for that to be improved and closer to that 10-win mark, if not there. Head coach Jay Norvell heads into his fourth season, and he brings in a new defensive coordinator with Tyson Summers coming over from Western Kentucky. He was the defensive coordinator there previously, so he kind of knows how to play defense with an aggressive scheme to get the ball back for an aggressive offense. Quarterback-wise, the return of Braden Fowler-Nicolosi for his third season as the starter gives the Rams a really stable baseline to work from. Last season, Nicolosi did not post the counting stats he did the prior year with less yards and touchdowns, but realistically, I think that can be contributed to a change in game scripts as the Rams led a lot more and they weren't really trying to play catch-up a lot, which had them running the ball more often to kill the clock rather than playing from behind. And it also didn't help that top target Torrey Horton missed most of the year, but he's gone now to the NFL. And Nicolosi's really a pocket passer in my eyes. He doesn't really utilize his legs much, but he does do well with his feel in the pocket and sack avoidance. So to further show improvement on his end, Nicolosi needs to continue to limit the interceptions, but I'd really like to see an increase in touchdown passes, as a 14-9 ratio last season was really a disappointment in my eyes given where he was previously and the expected growth that we thought we would see. Running back wise, where the pass game dropped off a year ago, the run game picked it up in spades. The combination of Avery Morrow and Justin Marshall were a revelation with nearly 1,800 yards and 13 touchdowns on the ground. Now we lose Morrow. He's going to depart his lead back role. It really gives Marshall the opportunity to pick up a lot of that slack and push for his own 1,000-yard season. Marshall really has been building to this since the end of his first year, and I expect him to have a breakout season. Marshall should pick up a good bit of that slack, but they're going to utilize multiple backs, and I think Jalen Dupree, he's going to fill that number 2 spot with transfer Lloyd Avant coming in from Tulsa, just close in tow, pushing him along the way. Pass catcher wise, although he never quite was able to put a full season together, the promise that Torrey Horton showed, specifically just running crossing routes all day long against Colorado that first year and just ripping them apart, whenever he was on the field, he was just a dominant force that could take over a game when he was on. But joining him and leaving are going to be Dane Olson, Donovan Ali, and 3 guys who transferred out in Jamari Person, Caleb Goody, and Dylan Goffney. Goffney showed a little bit of promise here and there as well. There is not another Horton on this roster right now that's going to take over that target hog number 1 role that previously Norvell had at Nevada with Romeo Dobbs. But the hope is that the depth chart can really make up for that in a group effort. Jordan Ross, he returns as the presumed leader of the room. He showed some flashes a year ago, and if he can show more consistency, he should be the top producer in the room. While Armani Winfield, he led the team in catches and also returns, but he's missed the spring with an injury, and he really needs to step up into a more prominent role in order to be a useful fantasy asset with all those shorter intermediate routes. Tommy Maher, he's going to be an interesting name to watch as he was previously a walk-on. He's developed really well. He's noted as a route technician, consistently getting open in practice. So we'll see how that translates into game action and how much run he gets. An interesting prospect is going to be Tay Lanier from New Mexico. They brought him in. He looks to be a great add after the performance he had in the spring. It likely led to him rising up the depth chart and being able to see significant playing time going into the fall. But there's one big uncertainty in this room, and it's transfer Kojo Antwi. He comes from Ohio State. We know that room has been stacked for years, so it's not a surprise that he couldn't crack the rotation there, and it really doesn't mean that his talent is any less because he couldn't crack that rotation. The talent's there. The man got to Ohio State for a reason. He was injured late last season, so his availability overall is currently up in the air. But if he can be healthy and if things break right, he can be the star of this room if things go well. Tight end wise, they've been heavily utilized in these Norvell systems over the past few years, going back to his time at Nevada. And they brought in Rocky Beers, all name team from FIU. He has really nice route running capability, a very good catch radius, and a good set of hands on him. He uses his hands. He's not a body catcher. I cannot stand body catchers. They're not good players. Will Fuller, the best of the bunch. That should tell you everything you need to know about how I feel about hands catchers versus body catchers. And it really led to him being the early favorite for this prominent role in the offense. I think he'll be utilized a lot, specifically up the seam. Offensive line-wise, they graduate 3 starters, including first-team all-conference center Jacob Gardner. That's going to be a big loss off of what was an experienced unit that did a great job producing run lanes and protecting the quarterback, given they only gave up 9 sacks a year ago, which is nice for an immobile target back there in Nicolosi. The return of right tackle Aaron Karras and left guard Tanner Morley are going to help to maintain some continuity, while they heavily rely upon returning depth pieces to assume bigger roles rather than dipping into the portal for immediate impact players. So they have a lot of confidence in that depth. Morley specifically is going to be a leader of the team overall, and not just along the line, but he's going to lead this unit vocally and by example. Trevin Heil, he has been in the system for a while. He looks like the likely candidate to take over for Gardner at center, which is going to be extremely important. Christian Martin should step in at that left tackle spot after being primarily the backup there. And I'm not even going to attempt the man's name, but they call him Big A. He's got a last name no sane human would attempt. He's just a massive human being. He's going to take over a guard spot. Defensive line-wise, top pass rusher from a year ago, Gabe Kershke, he leaves for Wake Forest off of a 7-sack season. But otherwise, there are more concerns along the interior of the line, given the graduation situation there. And then it's not too prohibitive because they're switching from a 4-man front to a 3-man front. And that's going to require a change in personnel anyway, as the body types needed to execute that system are completely different. That you need larger physical players to play those 5 techniques and that nose and all over the line there versus being able to play that wide 9 or that 7 on the outer edge. Additions of Denias Jackson from Kentucky, Alton Tarber out of the JUCO, along with some growth from Jernias Tafia, they're going to form a really nice trio up the middle. And then Mukendi Wakalonji, he's going to remain as a steady presence on the edge, ultimately probably playing a 5, maybe sometimes stretching a 7 tech as someone who can be relied upon to do his job. He's just such a quality, good all-around player. Andrew Lorich, he's coming on as well. He's going to jump into a bigger role too. Linebacker-wise, losses of Chase Wilson to West Virginia and Bohm Jock to Cal, they're going to remove nearly 200 tackles from a year ago. They leave some massive shoes to fill. Owen Long's going to step into one of those spots after coming on strong late last season as a true freshman and performing well. He has every chance in the world to be the breakout star this year of this defense and be someone that other teams take notice of, which is something that can be scary because they're going to start offering him a heck of a lot of NIL to come be their middle next year. The addition of Jacob Ellis from Iowa State, he's going to provide a nice veteran presence and likely leadership to this room. He's going to play a big part in the defense as well as the development of Owen Long and primary backup Drew Rodriguez, who are both growing into roles. Defensive back-wise, there's a ton of turnover on the back end as 7 of the top 9 guys are gone from a year ago. And then the top 2 returners, nickel Aiden Hector and cornerback Dylan Phelps, they provide at least some relief from that mass exodus in the back end. They turn to the portal for relief for those guys that are now gone, with Jahari Rogers from SMU, CJ Blocker from Utah, Lamondre Joe from Missouri State, and Elijah Brown from Arizona to bolster that cornerback position. Rogers is going to be the one to watch as someone who can step up and make big plays to steal possessions for the offense. He's really nice ball skills on the outside. At safety, it really looks like a mix of depth and portal to solve the losses they have there. Jake Dramalovich from Holy Cross, he's going to start in one spot with AJ Noland likely forcing his way into the rotation after a really strong spring showing in his second season. Looking at the schedule and outlook for this season, it was a surprise a year ago when they decided to go away from the air raid style that Norvell typically likes to use for a ground and pound keep away offense, but it was ultimately necessary given the talent they had in the backfield and the weaknesses they had on the defensive side of the ball. With the new DC, the system's really going to emphasize a high risk, high reward system where they're going to look to generate some exotic pressures, force negative plays with sacks and turnovers, and then play a large amount of man on the outside. That's going to mean that if they can get home to the quarterback and make those negative plays, it's going to be great. If they don't and can't generate those pressures, it's going to be a long day for those corners out on an island because you can't cover forever. Looking at the schedule, at Washington, it's going to be a loss. I think DeMond Williams is just going to be too much. He's going to overwhelm this defense early on, especially as they get their feet wet and get their feet under them, learning this defense and changing such a style of play that's going to be an issue. Northern Colorado, they're really going to get it together. They're going to dominate that team, and they're really going to put up some beautiful numbers there. UTSA, I think that's a fun game, and it's going to be very interesting. You can win that game. It's a coin flip for me. I just think that that's a very tough opponent. Similarly, Washington State, that's a coin flip. You got to love having those two games at home, though, because that's going to give you an edge, a slight edge there. At San Diego State, I think that's a win. Fresno State, I think, is going to be down this year. That's a win. Hawaii, you get them at home. That's a win. And then you get a sneaky spot. Wyoming, I don't expect to be good. I expect them to be slightly better than a year ago if you've watched the Wyoming preview. But I'm worried. Anytime you have to go to Laramie, specifically in a night game, strange things happen. Weird things go on. It's very similar to night games in Utah, or BYU. Weird things happen in Provo, So you need to be on your A game. I think you win this game. You should win this game on paper, but strange things can happen there. So you need to be careful and not take it lightly. UNLV at home, win. At New Mexico, win. It's a beautiful middle of the schedule for these guys. At Boise, loss. That's going to be a tough one on the Smurf turf. And then Air Force, I think it's a tough matchup. They have a quality offense. I think they're going to be coming around and getting better as the year goes on because they're so young. But I will lean win. And the weather in this game is going to matter, though. You're not going to want to have it be 20 degrees and snowing and then try to take on this Air Force team. The start of the schedule is extremely tough, but it really is going to ease up in the middle of the season towards the end. Other than that trip to Boise after the first 4 games, they're going to need to strike while they have such stable capability at the quarterback position, and I think they really can. 8 wins should be an expectation with the potential of upwards of 10, and an appearance in the conference title game could be in the cards.